Tonight begins with an event Moscow's leadership had long insisted could never happen. An operation Western intelligence services tracked live, carried out with remarkable precision by Ukrainian special forces, not on distant battlefields, not in occupied zones, but inside Moscow itself, within visual range of the Kremlin's walls. One night that brought flames to Russia's capital. One night that compelled Vladimir Putin to say a word he has carefully avoided for 3 years. Losses. One night that proved no part of Russia lies beyond Ukraine's reach. What unfolded tonight crossed a psychological line the Kremlin believed was untouchable. And when that line was crossed, Putin did not respond with his usual bravado. There were no nuclear threats, no promises of immediate revenge. Instead, he stood before cameras and, for the first time since the war began, acknowledged that Russia was paying a price. Ukraine struck with intelligence and accuracy that should alarm every Russian official, delivering a message that echoed through the Kremlin itself. This war will be fought on our terms, not yours. For weeks, subtle indicators had been emerging, not public Ukrainian statements, not official briefings, just signals. Ukraine had increased strikes inside Russian territory, yes, but always calculated. Their campaign followed a recognizable logic, targeting military infrastructure while deliberately avoiding anything that could be interpreted as a direct challenge to Moscow. Oil facilities, ammunition depots, airfields, command centers, legitimate military targets, all well beyond the capital. That pattern changed this week, and that change did not go unnoticed. Russian intelligence officers monitoring Ukrainian drone and special operations capabilities recognized the warning signs immediately. A sharp rise in reconnaissance activity over western Russia, unusual testing of long-range systems near the border, elite Ukrainian units vanishing from their known locations, intelligence channels that had been active for months suddenly went silent. That silence began 72 hours ago. And when Ukraine's most capable units disappear, it usually means something extraordinary is underway, something that cannot afford exposure. At approximately 3:15 a.m. May, Moscow time, residents in central Moscow reported a series of explosions near the Kremlin district. Within minutes, videos flooded Russian social media, showing fires burning less than 2 kilometers from Red Square. This was not an accident, not a stray drone. It was a deliberate, precise strike, the kind Ukraine uses only when it intends to send an unmistakable message. We can reach you, we know where your power is concentrated, and we can strike whenever we choose. Initial Western intelligence assessments suggested the attack might be symbolic, dramatic, but limited. That assessment changed quickly. Ukrainian forces struck at least 3 high-value targets inside the Kremlin district, including what analysts believe was a military coordination facility operating under civilian cover. When a country at war demonstrates the ability to hit military targets inside the enemy's capital, steps away from its leader's residence, the psychological impact cannot be overstated. The Kremlin's response tonight surprised even seasoned observers. It was not defiant. It was not threatening. It was subdued. In a hastily organized address, Vladimir Putin described the strikes as provocative and escalatory and then uttered a word that stunned analysts worldwide. Losses. Acknowledging losses matters only if it signals something deeper. And tonight, signs suggest a shift inside the Kremlin. Here is what we know. Within hours of the strikes, Moscow's air defense systems were elevated to their highest alert level, a status unseen since the early phase of the war. Emergency security protocols activated across the capital. Russian state media, normally quick to dismiss attacks as failed terrorism, remained silent for more than 4 hours. That silence spoke volumes. Ukrainian military intelligence later confirmed what Western agencies had already concluded. This operation had been in preparation for months. Ukraine struck before Russian air defenses could adapt. They hit a communications relay linking Kremlin leadership to frontline commanders. They struck a logistics coordination center hidden behind civilian infrastructure, targets Russian security services believed were invisible, untouchable. In short, Ukraine didn't merely strike Moscow. They demonstrated deep intelligence penetration into the core of Russian security, the ability to identify concealed military sites, to track their activity, to hit them with precision that minimized civilian harm while maximizing strategic shock. That is why Putin's admission mattered. The myth of an invulnerable capital has been shattered. Ukraine achieved this not through mass bombardment, but through surgical strikes that expose Russian defenses as ineffective. Not reckless destruction, but calculated operations designed to lead every Russian official wondering what Ukraine knows and what comes next. And this is where the significance deepens. Analysts believe the Kremlin district strike exploited a crucial psychological vulnerability, the belief that Moscow was a sanctuary. For 3 years, life in the capital continued while Ukrainian cities burned. That imbalance was central to Putin's domestic strategy. The war stayed far away. Tonight, Ukraine ended that illusion. Fires visible from the Kremlin. explosions echoing through central Moscow. For the first time, the war arrived at the doorstep of those who believed themselves protected. Western defense analysts now describe Russia's security posture as psychologically broken. One former intelligence officer summarized it simply: Ukraine didn't just hit targets, they destroyed the myth that Putin can protect his capital. As the morning unfolded, more details emerged. Ukrainian long-range drones entered Russian airspace through gaps Moscow's defenses failed to cover. Interceptor aircraft scrambled too late. Ukrainian cyber units disrupted emergency communication networks for nearly 30 minutes. After the strikes, Ukrainian intelligence released precise coordinates of the targets, proof they knew exactly what they were hitting. This was not a drone attack, not a symbolic gesture. It was a coordinated multi-domain operation executed at the highest level of sophistication. Ukraine showcased capabilities Russia never believed they possessed, and Russia has underestimated Ukraine at every stage of this war. Every defensive measure met with adaptation. Every assumption about Ukrainian limits proven wrong. Putin believed Moscow was immune. He believed his defenses were airtight. He believed the war would never touch Russian population centers. Tonight proved otherwise. What makes this moment dangerous is timing. Putin is already under immense internal pressure. Military leaders demand resources. Oligarchs want sanctions relief. Security services want answers. And now the public is watching their capital burn. Leaders humiliated in this way rarely respond calmly. They respond from pride, desperation, and the urge to reassert power. NATO's statement tonight reflected that risk, supporting Ukraine's right to strike military targets while warning against disproportionate retaliation. The distinction matters. Ukraine targeted military coordination facilities, not civilians, a boundary Russia has repeatedly ignored. President Vladimir Zelensky addressed his nation with measured resolve. Russia believed their capital was beyond our reach, he said. Tonight we proved them wrong, he continued. Every military target supporting occupation is legitimate. Distance provides no immunity. And finally, we did not start this war, but we will take it wherever necessary to end it. This strike was not isolated. Alongside Moscow, Ukraine launched coordinated attacks in occupied Crimea. Cyber operations disrupted command networks. Intelligence releases hinted at knowledge of additional high-value targets inside Russia. When Ukraine moves across multiple fronts at once, it signals a new phase. It's sonder as Ukraine. Several scenarios now loom. Russia may escalate attacks on civilian infrastructure, security services may purge internally, or a humiliated Putin may consider options previously unthinkable. But one truth is undeniable. Ukraine has shown it is willing to take risks Russia never anticipated. This is now a battle of narratives. Russia wants to pretend the war has no domestic cost. Ukraine wants to prove that illusion is over. NATO seeks to contain escalation, and the world is watching to see if this moment marks a turning point in a war that has already reshaped global security. More details will emerge. Damage assessments will follow, but what we already know is historic. Ukraine struck the Russian capital. Putin admitted losses, and the illusion of invincibility is gone. What happens next is being decided inside the Kremlin right now. But Ukraine has already proven something irreversible. There are no safe zones. Distance offers no protection. And Moscow can burn just as Ukrainian cities have burned. This war has entered a new chapter. And tonight, for the first time, Moscow is afraid.